Holy Spirit guide all of their words and give them the supreme knowledge that they require to spread the word. Thank you, and so it is.
Thank you, Chris. So, greetings, everyone. We all said, what are we going to meet up with tonight? Right? And this is it. Look around you. This is it. Welcome to every one of you. So this is the first Underhill Republican Party face-to-face meeting in over a year, all because of COVID. But here we are tonight, thankful that we're here. As chair of the Underhill Town Party, I invited our guest, UVM Professor Aaron Kinsvetter. Did I do that good?
Sehr gut.
Trust me, I was made to practice. I invited Professor to be with us, and I set up the to have the use of the town hall as required with our town clerk. The meeting is sponsored by the Underhill Republican Party, and I, as chair, set that up. To open up to the public, we have an agenda to follow, beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. And our flag has gone except for these wonderful little ones that I put down here, so we'll use the flag down here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
My wife won't call me that. That's trying for years.
So to start with, folks, I'm going to spend just a few minutes with Aaron. I read up about him, as some of you did, and listened to some of the videos and some of what people had to say about it. And I decided that we had a few things in common that I thought we maybe ought to talk to each other about. So, Aaron, I got the feeling from what I read about you that you cherish your First Amendment right. We have that in common?
Is it okay? Does this? Oh, okay. I think we need to cherish that, not just for ourselves, but for all people, and even those people who maybe don't understand what it means to have a First Amendment right. You know, and I think you and I share that, and I hope that other people, in seeing us cherish that, will cherish it for themselves and realize how important that is.
I think we're losing it. Do you think we're losing it?
Lost it long ago, Ellie. I'm not sure about you.
I was going to say, trust me, folks, anybody who knows me, I've not lost it. My First Amendment right, I'm still hanging on, right? And I got a feeling you are too.
No, I thought you meant my marbles, honestly. No, yes, I still have my First Amendment right.
What else would you say we have in common?
Well, I would like to think that I have your cojones. So I think we have that in common, that we know no fear when it comes to speaking out about what we believe to be right. And I hope that I have measured up to the standards that you've obviously set for the community here.
And I'm very pleased with what you set up for the community at UVM, all those young students, that you stood up strong for what you believe in. Something that all the people here would be. Let's have it. Now, I gotta tell you, Aaron, that there's far too many people that, I was down in Texas when you were making headlines last winter, and I got the news, but a lot of people missed the news, right? You didn't hear about Aaron you were raising hell down there, weren't you?
Yeah, hell was raised, politely, I hope. But yeah, it's on some subjects, especially those that cut to the very core of what we value in ourselves and what we would like to give to others. Speaking out about those issues invariably raises a great deal of anxiety and some hell that follows. And it is important during those times to remember our shared humanity and what we value in ourselves and what we value in others. But sometimes those conversations are not always comfortable and they have a rebellious component to them, don't they?
Yeah, they really wanted to snatch your job, fire you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I may not be on the provost Christmas card list anymore, which is really quite sad about that.
So the other thing that I got the feeling when I was learning about you, mainly online, was that you love our country, and you don't want to lose it.
That's right.
So what's you learned about me? What do we have in common?
Well, I think, Ellie, that we are both persons of conviction. I think we are both open. And one thing that I've come to learn about you is that you are exceedingly warm. It is not in my it's not actually in my nature to be on video and to be in articles, and even to be standing up in front of people is not my class. And you have been very welcoming company since I've been doing so, and I very much appreciate that, and I hope that's something that you and I have in common.
So one of the things that troubles me big time, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't like having my name defaced. Don't like that. How'd that go with you?
Couldn't care less. Couldn't care less.
Well, good for you. I'll have to learn that from you. I don't like it. I deal with it, and I handle it, but I really don't like it.
Can we sit down? Can we sit?
Can we sit?
Can we?
We can sit.
I want to take advantage of my comfortable chair.
You take advantage of the public
All right,
chair.
all right.
People that want to have a little conversation with you. One being Shane McCormick. There's a chair right here for you. And Emily and Mike. Which one of you are coming? Oh, yes, and Mike, too. Come on up. So we got 3 people that are going to just said it. Now, I learned from listening to Aaron that he likes to get into conversation I found that, was that easy? That was a little difficult,
What's that?
getting into conversation.
Yeah, I mean, around these issues, it is a little difficult. But, you know, one of the things that helps is I have the special chair and you don't.
So I'm going to let each of these folks introduce themselves. Emily Bliss lives up the road here, and I don't know Emily really well, but what I do know of her, I like her very, very much. And
just didn't use the microphone.
We can't even hear what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Just speak louder. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm Emily Diffendorfer. Nice to meet you all. Local Underhillian. My husband and I have 3 kids here.
you want to take this?
Oh, okay.
I don't know how much good it's doing.
So it's better to use this.
So do we need the mics or not?
No. Oh, okay.
So keep the mics, but maybe also speak so that people can hear.
Yeah, okay. So we can pass this around? Yeah, so once again, I am Emily Diffendorfer. My husband and I live here in Underhill with 3 kids. And we love this town, love this state, love this country.
Mike Bilowski with True North Reports, just here to see what everybody has to say and probably write a news story on what's said.
Oh, it's quite a swap here. So I get to go after a reporter in a situation where we can ask questions. So my name's Shane McCormick. I'm the vice chair of the Underhill Republican Party, and I'll be outshone by Mike. Very insightful questions. But I live in Underhill as well, right up the road as well. 4 kids, not 3, so that's about it. Thank you.
And I live in Plainfield. I forgot to say that. Far, not too far.
And I'm Aaron, and I live in Burlington, and I'm here at Ellie's kind invitation. She saw some of my videos and thought it would be a good idea for us to have a conversation. I've actually never been either to Jericho or to Underhill, and I am so happy to have had the opportunity to drive through those 2 beautiful communities on the way here this evening, and I'm so glad it was such nice weather, and I will be back soon to enjoy your little towns here, so thank you for the invitation, Ellie. And I live in Burlington with my wife, Linda, and we have 4 cats.
They're cheaper.
They are cheaper than children.
I have an observation I can share. I need one of the mics. So, and this will actually be highlighted in the news story coming out today, if it hasn't already. So I asked Aaron when I first saw the video about 4 months ago when he first started to speak out about some of the rhetoric on campus that, you know, was, well, the way we put it in the headline, I think, was blatant racism, it sounded to me anyway. But what I noticed was in the YouTube video, the comments and the likes and the dislikes were overwhelmingly in his support. But like literally 100-to-1 ratio. I actually did the math. I plugged all the numbers in and it came out like about 100-to-1 likes to dislikes, which was appeared very favorable to him. But at the same time, I'm still hearing these headlines about what's happening at the university. Some people say, I guess some people want to get your job or want to get you out of your job. So it's the same question asked in the article. How can it be that there's such a disconnect between what's happening at the UVM campus and what people are saying versus what we're hearing from the nation when they hear what you have to say, you know?
So I'm good.
Yep.
So I think I'm mic'd. Well, let me first say that, so why is there such a ratio between, why did so many people like my video if at the University of Vermont, you know, that video was viewed primarily as an act of violence towards minorities, right? And there are a couple of answers to that. One is why do so many people be willing to support my video online? Probably because they could do it mostly anonymously. And people are terribly, terribly afraid right now to speak out on this issue. And they're right to be afraid. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but we are in an extremely grave situation right now. Extremely grave. And I am not using hyperbole. It's very, very bad, and you would not believe what the future teachers are being taught in the colleges of education. There was recently a suggestion that was taken seriously by many that the University of Vermont base its education curriculum on Ibram X. Kendi's book, Anti-Racist Baby. Anti-Racist Baby, which is a book that was meant to be read to pre-verbal children, and that's what the professors of education think that the next generations of teachers should be equipped with. You know what step 7 of the 9 steps is for pre-verbal children? Confess your racism.
Oh my God.
Confess your racism. And this is what teachers who are going to be coming into your elementary schools, your middle schools, your high schools, are being taught as intellectual refinement. And I think a lot of people know inherently that that's not good, that surely we can do better than this as a country. There must be something better than a punitive way of addressing issues of racism that still exist in our country. They know that that must be true, and they know that this is going in a way that is very bad. But these issues are so very difficult to speak out on, and the issues have been named by master manipulators. Who wants to be against anti-racism? That was named very, very intentionally. And it intimidates a number of people into silence. The other problem is that people like me have not done as well as we might. We're trying to catch up. We are trying to catch up. But we've not done a good job as professors, generally speaking, of discussing in our classes ideas like universal social justice, right? We've not done a good job of discussing pro-human rather than anti-racist approaches to the racial problems that do continue to plague our country. They are there. Did you know that if you are a black person in this country, you are 20%, and this is based on the very best science. This is good science. Okay, this is not somebody's feelings that they're sharing. You are 20% more likely to be subjected to nonviolent coercion. If you are a black person, you are 20% more likely for the police to have their hands put on you. That's not okay. We need to figure that out. Why is that? And we don't have to moralize that, by the way. We don't have to say police suck, and we don't have to say police are racist. We don't need a moral judgment. But what we do need is the ability to address those kinds of problems in a pro-human, what's the term I want? Non-subjective, objective manner. And that's what universities are supposed to do. We're supposed to define the problem, measure it, divine solutions that we think are going to work, and then enact those solutions and prove that those do indeed reduce the level of lethal coercion that black men are subjected to in this country. But we're not doing that. We're saying microaggressions are more harmful than the KKK. We're saying, like, you will quickly go down the rabbit hole if you look at what is passing for, you'll see, you'll see whiteness turning towards whiteness. And by the way, black people who don't agree with this, they've just got internalized whiteness. What the universities are essentially doing is they're teaching how to make non-problems into a major problem. And while people are getting lots of money to do that, they're actually not solving a problem at all. What they are doing is ensuring that there is perpetually a problem upon which they can base their career. So if I, as a professor, base my career on the study of microaggressions, I've got a certain financial interest in making sure that people continue to perceive that this is a problem. And that's a sure sign that there is a significant, there are significant bodies of study and and colleges and disciplines within today's university that have far outlived their usefulness and that are acting in an irresponsible manner and are causing people to turn against each other for no reason when we could be putting our energy into addressing actual honest-to-God issues like the fact that black men are subjected to non-lethal coercion at a higher rate than the rest of us are. That's not okay, but we don't need to villainize anyone for that. We don't need to hunt people down. We just need to agree that this is a problem and use science to address it. Universities, and in particular colleges of education, are not doing that. They are teaching anti-racist baby. They are saying confess your racism. That was a really long answer, Mike.
Okay.
So did you get that down? Yeah. So you feel free to quote. Do I have a question? Emily, what brought you here tonight?
I don't know if you guys can hear me any better. Can you hear me any better? No? Okay. I am just, local citizen, mom, and I homeschooled our 3 kids for a number of years, and the past couple of years have been working at MMU High School, Mount Mansfield High School here. Just study hall monitors, but, learning, just interacting with the staff and the kids and families and things like that. Which has been really a wonderful thing, actually, and the staff there are awesome. The kids are awesome. So it's really been an honor. I've loved it. But I've also seen what has been brought in, especially this past year. And it has been very grievous to me as just a person, as a mom. And I can't even believe how quickly it was ushered in and the way in which it has been. And my kids have shared with me the various things that they were asked to do in school as well. So if you want me to elaborate just for some examples.
I would love to have some examples, Emily.
Yeah, so my, let's see, my youngest daughter, 8th grade, they did, towards the end of the year, because, COVID was online and then all this stuff came, and a lot of critical race theory stuff was brought into, the curriculum very suddenly. I don't know who was ever asked about it at all. Yeah. I don't think anyone was I don't think anyone was really informed about it or even asked. But she just gave one example. For social studies, there were 18 lessons, she counted them, that brought in mostly how terrible our past historic figures were. People who fought for freedom or established positive, things in our society, in our country, how they are bad, how they were racist, how the statues should all be torn down, and over again, they were basically being indoctrinated, in my opinion, to, just to agree and to swallow this pill of saying how terrible our forefathers were, and writing papers on it, reading one of the main, for example, curricula things that is used in social studies is called Newsella, and they have to read an article and then comment on it. And so this is, I think, nationwide Newsella. I'm not sure if it's worldwide, but nationwide anyway. And it basically echoed all of this same stuff. So she just said it was repetitively about that. Instead of really going into the Civil War and what happened, for example, it was all about how bad this person was, what they did, how that we should tear down the statue. And her own teacher said how we should be guilty of being white. We are naturally racist. I mean, just bold-faced. And the children are all supposed to agree and swallow this pill whole. So that was really grievous to hear that. And know that that's what she had to sort of, deal with. And she also sort of had to try to stay under the radar, as we all can relate to. But you could imagine as a middle schooler how that might feel.
A middle schooler needing to stay under the radar to
right.
keep their thoughts quiet.
Right. So that's what she had to deal with. And then being in the high school, I was hearing from many students how this was in every subject, brought into every subject, from English, from The Hate You Give, to forums that the whole school had to watch, like the author who wrote the Hate You Give book. For advisory, for example, the entire school had to sit for an hour and a half and watch her on a Zoom meeting talking about all of this. And then there were signs on the wall that were put on the walls of the school that this committee was talking about how one should think. So you're not allowed to say a certain word. You're not allowed to, and I actually took pictures of those signs on my phone. So telling us how we need to think, what we should say and what we should not say. And so I thought that was interesting that they are now raising our children even more than we want and we even know about. So the state is really stepping in to parent our children, I guess, with things we don't even know about. Sorry, long answer.
I am so sorry that I could not even imagine if I had children and they were in that situation. And there was one thing I just want to sort of tag, and that is you really cannot, the level of manipulation that is occurring is astounding. And what Emily is describing, that is precisely what is being taught as intellectual refinement at places like the University of Vermont. Nobody dares question the things that Emily's kids are being taught, and their kids. And I really cannot emphasize this enough. The common theme you will see running throughout this literature is the importance of capturing the language. First, it will be what you can't say, and that's easy for many people to agree to, because the specter of times in our history where horrible names were hurled at gay people and black people are fresh in our memories. And so we can give that. We can say, yes, there are certain things that we cannot say, but what happens is something called concept creep, where what we can't say slowly expands into normal. And then tell me if this sounds familiar. It's not only what you can't say, but what you must say.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what comes next. And so I will give you an example. There's a concept in radical gender theory. One of the things that I will share is that I do believe that for adults who experience gender dysphoria, in many cases, transition of gender is the right thing clinically for that adult. So I support transgender rights. Having said that, this idea has been taken to radical extremes, where now children who we would not trust to have a driver's license are being allowed to make decisions about whether they're going to medically alter their bodies. That's crazy. That's crazy, okay? But what they're doing in order to enforce this way of thinking is, if you have a case study now, if you say Mike is a extremely good-looking, talented journalist who's 34 years old and has come in for counseling because of his fear of penguins, okay? I will be because I referred to him as, I referred to Mike as a man. And when I should have said, what I'm required to say is that Mike is a cis man, okay? It's a way of, and just simply calling Mike a man now is misgendering him. We must incorporate cis into every conversation. And so once you capture the language, you really can start to change the way that people think. And I cannot overemphasize how much a part of this, what's going on, is about the language. There is absolutely no science to back up what your kids are being taught. But if another trick that is used is you just take the same idea and you repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over, and finally, just the way that our psychology is built, you will begin to incorporate that, and that is what is being done to our children. And there is no theory of education, none whatsoever, that says that that's a good idea. That's just an effective way to manipulate somebody. To manipulate a middle schooler who's in 8th grade, who trusted the adults at that school with her education. What the hell are we doing?
So I'm kind of curious. I watched the video for the first time today. I thought it was, I cannot understand why there was such a reaction to it. I thought it was a polite plea, I think, is probably how I would describe it, to avoid certain, I guess, certain language, right? Certain, I guess, attempts at conveying an ideology. I'm kind of curious, you did mention at the beginning of your video, I don't want to offend any of my students who have suffered discrimination, because I think you recognize, look, there is discrimination in the world, and many people may say this CRT is an attempt, ham-fisted, wrong-headed, whatever, but an attempt to remedy a wrong that really does exist. I'm kind of curious if you have students that were black students, people of color, and what they thought about it. If you get any feedback, other than the people that, sort of rabble-rouse on the campus and want to, get you fired and stuff like that. But
yeah, no, I did not receive much feedback, but I would push back on one point. I don't think that CRT is an attempt to rectify our issues pertaining to race in this country. I don't think that at all. I think that what CRT has done is it's taken an issue that affects us all very deeply and that attaches itself to the best part of what we have to offer each other. The parts of us that say, we don't like our history of race in this country. We love our country, and we want to figure out how to make that better. And we want to do right by every person in this country. And it attaches itself to that like a parasite. But its goal isn't to solve anything. That's why it might appear to be ham-fisted. Its goal is to attach itself to that concept so that it can slide in, because CRT is not about race, it is about power. And the only reason it's gotten as far as it has is because it's very good at pretending that it's about race. It's not. It's not. It's about power.
If I may ask again, another question that I asked you already for my article, but I think folks would like to hear what you have to say. If you were somebody who was in a position similar to you were before you spoke out, before you made the video and got the attention, I should say, but somebody who's experienced something like a colleague approaching them and saying, I want to talk to you about your whiteness, or I want to talk to you about your internal racism, or whatever, however they phrase it, what would your advice be to that person on how to perhaps say something and not lose their job, or maybe that's what they're facing?
Well, I'm Mike
Oh, right,
here.
I keep forgetting.
Well, this is not a question to be taken lightly. I think that if one, cancel culture, it is absolutely real. If you look, you can look on change.org, and you look under my name, Aaron Kinsvater, and you'll find, like, I don't know, what, 4,000 signatures demanding my resignation. So that will happen to you, and if you speak out on these issues. The other thing that you really have to be prepared for is you have to be sure of yourself. And I don't mean arrogant. I mean that you have to look deep and ask yourself the hard questions, and then be your own fair judge of yourself. That way you don't rely on the judgment of adolescents or on people who do not understand that they're being manipulated, okay? And then find a community of supported others. There's an organization called the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism that is a pro-human organization, and we are going to get that started up in the state of Vermont, coming soon to a theater near you. And we will talk much more in this organization about pro-human approaches that give, you know, I guess to a certain degree, I'm sympathetic, or at least I understand the teachers who are getting pulled into this nonsense. Now, they should have, if you're going to be a teacher in the first place, the first thing they should do is not an ideological litmus test, but to say, can you stand up? Do you have the courage of your convictions? That should be the first thing that they ask a teacher. But I have some sympathy that they have not been given any alternatives to CRT. So organizations like FAIR are spreading alternative curriculum that are pro-human, and we'll be doing a much better job of that. But find a community of supported others, because no matter how thick your skin is, no matter how much you believe in yourself, enough people shouting racist at you and homophobe and transphobe and all these other vile things will eventually break your ego down. You need to have a community of other people, and you need to have a plan B. You need to know that the freedom isn't free, and there is no guarantee anywhere that you speaking your mind will not lead to you losing your job. So prepare to make that sacrifice, or have a plan B in place, is what I would say. So be sure of yourself. If you can find a non-woke psychotherapist, like I was lucky enough to find I'm a psychotherapist myself, but I found a non-woke psychotherapist that I've been working with. I've met wonderful, wonderful people, and you know, I could care less what people say. But it's not under any and all conditions that, you know, it's a fantasy to think that you can speak out on issues like this and then whistle happily down the block and, I don't know, have a beer or whatever. It's intense, and you got to prepare for that intensity. So those three concrete steps, and then when people say, like school board members are going to say things like, yeah, but we have to do something, and that all leaves us kind of stuck, because we have nothing left to offer except, well, freedom of speech, and how about history is history, and so forth. We don't have an alternative to CRT right now. Or I should say, it would be more accurate to say we haven't had an alternative to CRT. We now have that. coming soon to a theater near you via the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. Are we asking, are people asking questions? Are we?
You know, I can speak up. I'm pretty sure they can hear. The one thing that I have to question about the CRT is the United States and I'm sure other countries are so homogenized now. I mean, obviously we see differences between, say, Rohan and ourselves. The difference, the color difference is there. But I have.
Oh my God, Rohan's black.
I have a niece who is in a mixed family, so my great nieces are mixed. So if it doesn't show, like if they look just a little tan or whatever, but so how do the teachers pick out? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they look at me and go, you need to denounce your whiteness. Well, hello, I've got black in me.
Okay.
So we're so homogenized, how are they even pulling this off?
Because black people can be white, right, Rohan? It's called multiracial whiteness, you know. And if a black, I wish I was making this up. I wish I was making this up. But yes, you cannot imagine what a threat black people who don't believe in CRT are to this movement. They hate it. And so you have to find a way to explain what transgender people and black people and gay people who don't buy into this and who say, I don't want my kids learning that's awful. That causes a real problem for the professors in the College of Education. And so they have to explain that. And so the way that they explain that is by further dehumanizing black people. By saying, yeah, that's your internalized whiteness speaking. You're not really black, you know. You're white. Isn't that awful? And yet that is intellectual refinement at the university level these days. I think the person back here.
I'm finding this really appalling, and I can't believe that your daughter would experience such a thing. I know a lot of students in my neighborhood who go to different schools, and I also know teachers, and none of them talk about any of this. What they're doing is just trying to teach real history unwashed. Unwashed. Now, a lot of children are
Heroes.
experiencing bias in school, and they're trying to deal with that in school. But I don't hear anyone saying that you need to be ashamed of being black or ashamed of being white. I've never heard any of those in the schools.
It's not far off. Yeah, I'm so glad that.
Westford, Essex, South Burlington, and I know some of our neighbors teach at NMU, and I'm not hearing any of that stuff.
I'm so glad.
I'm not hearing any of it.
But it's not like they're not trying to bring it in because this is huge.
They're not trying to make people feel ashamed of who they
No,
are.
no,
What
what
they're
I'm
doing
saying
is trying to teach real American history without whitewashing it, so that it doesn't repeat itself.
Thank God for those teachers. That's how it's supposed to be done. Those are some professionals.
Deal with it, it's not gonna get better.
But it's pulling
But
down
the same
statues
way
the way
with
they do
history,
it.
if history, our past isn't dealt with, you don't know about it.
But what they're trying to do is erase it. They're trying to
No,
pull
they're
down.
not trying to erase it.
So all the statues that they have pulled down over this last year has
One of
nothing
the
to do
reasons
with
they're taking those statues down is because of what they say on them and what they
But
represent.
that's our history. That's our
They
history.
belong in a museum, not as a monument.
You know what?
That people
That's a
have to
good
look
idea.
at.
That's
We
a
have to
very
learn,
good
we
idea.
have to
They should
learn
not-
through history.
That's a very good
Because
idea.
putting these
But
people,
what they did is they ruined them. They didn't take them down and make them use
not
them
all
to
of them
teach
have
us.
been ruined.
Yeah, they've taken them, they've ruined them.
Not all of them have been ruined.
Okay, well, enough.
Well, I mean, so the point that I'm hearing is there are some there.
Slavery statements on there is not a very comfortable thing for black people in the South to
Yeah, I was just going to say. So, does this not touch us in the very most intense parts of our being? Do these issues not touch us there? I mean, they're so difficult, but it's such a relief to know that that's not going on, and I really, really hope that that continues. I mean, that's wonderful, and I think that the the teachers who are teaching history and all of its nuance are doing a wonderful thing.
And what I said was, did you not hear what I said? I did hear what you said. I think that's appalling, but I'm not hearing that.
So, I mean, I don't think it's a particularly controversial thing to say. This isn't everywhere yet, and that's appalling if it came there. I think there's common ground here. You know, I think that there's common ground.
And is there common ground in something? And maybe, like I told you before we met, I'm like a man on the street when it comes to CRT. I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've led a blessed life. I'm not sure, but I do know about diversity trainings, which don't necessarily talk about how one group of people is evil, one group of people is benighted, but it is, we can work together. You need to be sort of understanding of people's differences and this and that. Is that kind of a middle ground that? I mean,
that's common sense.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, but that's not that.
It's not
That's called multiculturalism, right? And that's the idea that, wow. There are people from different religious backgrounds who experience reality differently. There are people who worship differently. And I might have different experiences of traditions, and yes, I might have different. We don't want to assume that because it leads us down a road of stereotyping, but maybe I've had different experiences than you have if I'm a different race. Maybe. But that's multiculturalism. That's a fantastic idea. It's like learning about each other, and it's a part of being in a pluralistic world. And that is absolutely that would be considered a microaggression on campus.
Today?
Oh, yeah.
To have a
Oh, my God. To say everybody is different or everyone has, we should find a way to talk together. I mean, I think that's what I said in my video, right? Is like some version of we need to find a way to find our common ground and not turn against each other based on racial categories. Is what I would wish to have conveyed. But that is really considered a point of view that is the height at ignorance on a college campus. Because on the college campus, everything is now about power, and there is some sort of identity calculus that we are supposed to figure out to determine how much power do you have based on this set of privileges and that set of parts of your identity that would lead to some disadvantage. And the other part that has gone with that is there is a status that now accompanies, and this is really dangerous, it's finding its way into school. There's a status that accompanies one's identity markers. And the more claims to oppression that one can have, the more sort of status and attention that comes with that. And so you have, young children, rather than building sort of a complex and nuanced sense of self that's ready to cope in a pluralistic world, you have children that are learning to view themselves and others in terms of circumscribed, uncomplicated and unnuanced identity markers, and this is the most unhealthy generation of young persons that we've ever seen. And there's, I mean, the spike in anxiety and depression is enormous. And part of it has to do with that we're losing our sense of nuance, and we're rewarding seeing oneself as some version of oppressed. And that I've talked with other psychotherapists in Vermont who are really, really worried about this, because what that requires is that one gives up all of one's sense of agency, one's sense of being able to get along in the world and say, my ability to be okay depends on your willingness to see me as a victim. I've just given all of my power to you, which is why people are so pissed when you appear to, ignore their identity markers, or you don't make identity the primary part of the conversation. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting observation by Jonathan Haidt, who get the name wrong, who writes a lot and excellent books on sort of the culture of campus. I think he wrote a great book called Coddling of the American Mind.
Oh, yes. Wonderful.
Which talks about how, sort of the victim mentality becomes kind of the dominant mentality. At least that's his theory. But if that's true, his point was that you end up with the only people that are not permitted to be victims are probably the most successful people in the country to begin with. And they are challenged, they're pushed, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. It's generally privileged white males that aren't permitted to be victims. So they go through this 4-year period of learning, growing, getting stronger. And at the end of the day, it just makes us more unequal. We've prepared a certain subset of the population for life after the academy, right? Real life.
Yeah.
These other subsets are not, because they gravitate to it.
It's a wonderful reframing of the equity question, because in some ways what society is doing right now, it is giving a tremendous gift, particularly to straight white males. And that is that it is continually insisting that they think something that they might not, that they believe something that they don't, that they speak something that they don't want to say. And what that causes is grit. And so these are going to be people, these are going to be the people who at the end of the day are going to be able to say, I learned a long time ago, son, what you think doesn't matter. Shut the hell up. Get out of my way. The straight white men are going to have that privilege.
What about the black men?
Well, I actually think that black men are going to take care of themselves, because I think there is one, I will say one stereotype here about black people, and that is that our history has been such that black people are blessed with a bullshit detector, that the rest of us are not. And so I think that black men are going to be okay. I think that they see this coming, despite the efforts of the education system to convince them that they are victims. I think they'll be okay, and maybe that's because they've already lived through. They have within their family's history. They have grandpa can tell stories of what it was like. Dad can tell stories of what it was like, and like these are the challenges in life. And so they sort of have that generational memory of hardship. And by the way, I don't mean to suggest, as we talked earlier, like there's still that, like, you might need to be extra aware of the police if you're a black man, because statistics suggest, like, you got a 20% more chance of, being put on the hood of a car than if you were of a different race. And probably that lends itself to a kind of wisdom as well. Do you want to call on people, Lily?
I just had a question, because this is a sort of ideological sort of meeting of the minds, and just from my personal experience of living all over the world,
that they've couched, well, yeah, I mean, they've.
It's crazy to me. I'm sick of being called a racist. But I think the Democrat Party is more responsible for that than anything. And they want to fix it, and God bless them, because they have great hearts. I mean, they really do want to. They're not evil. But I think I have a different opinion. I'm sick of people trying to say, because I believe that I'm a racist, or even if I vote for Trump or something, a bunch of crap. Of course, he was not very great with the way he ran people down. I would never do that. But I always vote for less government. So I just had to get it off my chest.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. A lot of people feel that way. Can I just, can I hit a couple of points that, because you make a lot of important points. One, I don't know if you've read Shelby Steele's White Guilt, but that's a wonderfully written book, and he sort of talks a lot about the things that you've seen. Two, I think there's really something to the shared humanity approach, like challenging those black kids to a dancing contest on like, way to go. And it's like, and also once you actually meet people and understand them as individuals, and that the victim stuff tends to go away, because there is something very superficial to, it's called virtue signaling, and I do think that virtue signaling, like the level of insecurity is proportionate to the number of signs that a person has in their yard saying how great they are. But
First of all, what is the end game to colleges? I thought colleges were meant to get at the truth. High school was meant to get at the truth, as well as in middle school. And the truth is about the founding of our nation would never have come about if slavery was dealt right there at the beginning. We would have lost the South, we would have had England to the south of us, and north and Canada. It would have never happened. It was put off for a reason, and there were great men in history. And little known facts about these people. Yes, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. He couldn't free his slaves because there was a law in Virginia that forbade him. So he paid them. Nobody talks about that. And getting back to your point, is that, and I remember this clearly because I'm old, but Lyndon Johnson, when he instituted the war on poverty, we have been fighting this war for how long, yet we still have poverty.
yeah,
And it's not about poverty, it's about gaining a section of the nation to vote for them, because you don't want your money cut off, okay? And so welfare was instituted with that idea, and he actually was caught somewhere saying that, and not very nicely. He said, I'll keep these people voting Democrat for years.
yeah.
He was absolutely right. But the black men today are wise to this, and many of them are educated. But what really bothers me is, what is the end to all this lying? What are they trying to accomplish? If you know Karl Marx and have read any of their stuff, and I'm not a great scholar at all, but I know enough about him that he divided people into classes. And
it's a very, very, very grave situation. It's very grave.
I'm worried sick for my grandchildren because I know, and they go to Essex, Western School District, and they won't even talk to me anymore. You're always one wise to my questions, but we can talk football and still be in the same room. And I said, I don't care what your opinion is, because everybody has an opinion, and your opinion is, you can express your opinion to me, even though I think it's wrong. I will listen, but I'm going to give you my opinion too, and you're going to probably think my opinion is wrong. But not to monopolize the conversation again.
It's none of this is. This doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, does it? Does it, guys? Like you can't put. It takes a while to get out, doesn't it?
But if you want to read some decent literature, two very well-known economists, one who died recently, my favorite, and right now his name escapes me. That's part of my.
You're not talking about Thomas Sowell, are you?
Thomas Sowell.
Oh, yeah.
And then Walter Williams is the other.
Oh, Walter Williams. Sure.
So great.
It's Shelby Steele's another great. Yeah, fantastic stuff.
I love to watch, read his columns all the time. He has that, and I have a website.
You know what we ought to do? We ought to, a lot of us, we ought to get together with some other people who are interested. We ought to have like a study group that we meet like, I don't know, once every couple of months, and we could get some equipment, we could put together a PowerPoint, and we could take some of our favorite ideas from people like Walter Williams and just talk about them, because it's sort of hard when you get blindsided, like when you have to stand up at a school board meeting and you never stood up and talked about these things before. You know, and trying, like, Walter Williams is such a complex thinker. It's so much easier to have a bumper sticker that, you know, says whatever, Black Lives Matter or whatever, and then let the argument stop there. It's a lot harder to say, okay, we need to take a long, hard look at the unintended consequences of trying to do the right thing, what those were in the 60s, and the impact that had on the very people that we were trying to help. And that's not a particularly comfortable situation. But we should do that. We should have classes or something.
I think we should do that. Just 1 minute. These two people here have reminded me that I grew up extremely poor. And I didn't know I was poor at all until people made me feel poor. They had to point it out to me, poor kid, you know. You can have my kids hand-me-downs, you know. And
Can you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. So leave the poor alone, and they'll do just fine. Trust me. They have good parents who teach them. This is America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, and it's up to you what you make of yourself. That's what our kids need. That's what I was given, and I did fine. I did very fine. Poor and all, huh?
Two rules that I
Yeah.
want. Treat everybody like you would like to be treated.
Yeah,
That's one of
it
those
works.
rules
Those.
right there. And the other one, escapes me right now.
Oh, I forgot the other rule, did you?
All right. Rohan, I can't help but think, I want to know what Rohan's thinking. As you listen to all this, do you have something, I know one, let me tell you what I do know about Rohan. He ain't going nowhere. He's instructed his wife, when he passes away, he's not going anywhere. I do know that about him. He loves America. So, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
I listen to everybody's speech.
Can I give you this?
I think what I see happening around is to deliberately distract the minority community from being responsible people, from being fathers raising the children, you know, the way that, you know, that our grandparents took care of us. So
can you imagine the depth of the need of someone who needs to convince someone else that they're, like, can you imagine how insecure that must be, that you have a need that someone else has to think like you? That's a terribly powerless position to be in, and it's unfortunate that so many seem to have that level of insecurity, that it's kind of like, no, you must be oppressed because I need you to be. I don't matter quite as much if you're not. So let me explain to you, you multiracial white person, you.
I'd like to go back to something Aaron said earlier. Your chief education of an attitude of rejecting people on see everything in binary black and white terms. It seems to me, you spoke of it as characteristic of the left, but it seems to me it's characteristic of idealism on both sides of the spectrum. But the difference is those kinds of ideals are pretty much running the Republican Party in a way that's not at all true of the Democratic Party. I think the Republican Party is sort of one off deep end, operating at a much lower level than these two. What's your
Except in Underhill.
Well, there's a really interesting article, and it's out there online for free. And you can Google this and look it up, and it's called the Dark Triad. And what the Dark Triad refers to is the personality traits of identitarians. And a study was done, and people who are willing to punish other people based on their identity tend to conform to these dark triad traits, and they exist exactly as you suggest on the right and the left. So your point is well taken that there are people on the right and the left who are really causing problems.
That's not my central point. My central point is that kind of personality type has taken over the Republican Party in a way that did not happen on the Democrats.
I haven't found that. I thought Kamala Harris put out a extremely manipulative cartoon where she has where she has a white person and a black person, and the white person's on top of a mountain, and the black person's a little bit lower down, and she says, hey, don't you want a world where, we're both on an equal playing field? And it's like, has anyone ever seen the graphic of, like, there's a short person, a medium-sized person, and a tall person trying to see a ball game, right? And they say, this is equality, this is equity. And what it's saying is, gee, wouldn't it be great if everybody could see the game? And literally everybody wants that, and so it's really appealing. What's really manipulative is you never see the processes by which the crates are redistributed in that little thing. And Kamala Harris, in her little graphic, never showed the process by which the mountain is raised up. It's like, was that magic? Or was there some set of principles and policies that were put into place? So I think Kamala Harris is I think she's a snake in the grass. And she strikes me as just as corrupt as, I know what you're talking about on the right. I know what you're talking about. The one person that doesn't scare the hell out of me right now on the Democratic left is Tulsi Gabbard. The rest of them, I think, are weak. I think they've lost whatever principles they had. I think they're sellouts. I'm disappointed to have ever voted for them. don't agree with your point of view. Yeah. Hey there. Yes.
My name is Christopher from Moncton, and I also don't want to proselytize and impose my beliefs upon everybody else.
Oh, okay, right.
But if I may, I was just going to say, just to frame it in this context of spiritual warfare. So I look at all of society as being guided by the fallen angels, and society has always been corrupt. And so if we look at that, I don't care if you pray or not, but I'm just saying you got nothing to lose by praying, and we can all pray for that knowledge that we need. And if we look at this as spiritual warfare, this is an attack on freedom, this is an attack on families, this is an attack on the United States, critical race theory, just a
You don't have this one?
of Marxism.
Okay.
Thank you. Amen.
Can I ask a follow-up? So when I suggested giving CRT proponents the benefit of the doubt and said this may be ham-fisted, this may, good intentions, right? You look out in the world, you see disparate results for African Americans in this country. And there's a problem, something needs to be done, this is something, let's do something, let's do this, right? And you said, no, it's about power.
Yeah.
And so power for who? I mean, is it about Marxism? Is it about kind of clerical power? I mean, we do have like a lot of the religious terms here, right?
Yeah.
The words you can't say, and the exorcism, and all that stuff. But is it money power, or?
I'm sure that plays into it, and I think what you're asking me is some version of the evil genius question. Like, is there like an who's the evil genius?
The goal is not to do right.
Yeah. I think the way that this plays out, where I see it every day, is that the person who believes the right thing and says the right thing is the person who gets on grants and gets on the committee. So the power, it's not as if there's someone controlling the power, but power is granted to those who toe the line, and power is taken away from those who do not. And so is there an evil genius? Well, I think that when an orthodoxy is created in the world, the orthodoxy exists only to serve itself. And I think that's what's happening right now. And so you will have power and influence on college campuses if you toe this line. You will be viewed as a good person if you have the right yard sign in your yard. And it's like, for each person who toes the line, you get power, you get merit, you get privilege, and I think that's how the power works. I think there are a lot of people who have really good intentions, but who do not understand what CRT is actually about. And what they tend to do is they confuse CRT and civil rights, and they think that they're the same thing, and they're not at all. Yes. That's a lovely thought. I'm inclined to agree with that.
14-year-old mistress, a black slave, that's okay. No, just kind of ignore that? But it's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm trying to understand here. What I'm saying is also he was able to put aside his own failures and focus on what would work. He was extremely wealthy. They all were wealthy.
What's wrong
But
with that?
there were only two of them that weren't slaves. What he and the founders did was create a republic that's lasted over 200 years.
Not only that, but one that could. This is what stands out for me, and those who are more learned in history can correct me about this. But this is what I think is really inspirational about our country: is that it was designed to evolve, right? And if you're interested in keeping slavery as an institution, or if you're interested in making sure that one class is always kept down, you would never create a mechanism by which society could ever evolve beyond that. And the fact that our forefathers, flawed as they were, created a document that would allow for their power to eventually be usurped is extraordinary to me. I mean, it's, wow, what an act of supreme wisdom. I'm not, but point well taken, right? You know, could you say your name, Pam?
The victimization. And I'm going to, kind of put it into a different area where we're not all so, focused on race. Just say, for instance, you have a woman that's been abused all her life. She goes for counseling, and the counselor says to her,
Oh, God.
"You're a victim.
Oh, God.
You're a victim.
Oh.
You concentrate on the fact that you are a victim." How do you feel? Do you know what I mean? So we're constantly pointing out, you're a victim, you're a victim. You end up staying in the victimization. You don't ever get over it. You don't get out of it. You don't progress or grow. We're doing the same thing, or they're doing the same thing with the CRT. It's pointing out to the black people, you're victims. And I'm not going to say that they weren't. I'm not going to say that we didn't have a horrible history. Slaves were all over the world. Black people in Africa sold their own people into slavery. So it's all over the place. It isn't just America. What I'm saying is, if we are telling them all the time that they are victims, how do we ever expect them to grow out of that? They want to. We're the ones, in a way, or with a CRT, that are keeping them in that victimization.
Your point is so well taken, and I haven't talked about this tonight. I've been thinking about education, but education also involves school counselors who are in the school taking this in there. But I'm really I'm a professor of psychotherapy, not of education. But I'm in the College of Education, and I see what's being taught there. It really, really, really worries me that psychotherapy is being politicized, and it is. If you want to go on to, if you look up on the online magazine Quillette, there's an article that was written about the University of Vermont graduate counseling program, and there's what really sort of brought me out, the reason that I did this video, is there is a proposal within our program to adopt anti-racism, as Kende describes it, as sort of the backbone of our program. And this included the suppositions that if one disagreed with what Kende was saying, then one should be considered not to be acting racist, but to be a racist. It was actually in there. Now you have to ask yourself, why would a program that is focused on training the next generation of psychotherapists need to be anti-racist? Because they're going to be working, not out in some big system, but they're going to be working with individual psychotherapy clients. And therein is the answer to the question. And this is where it comes back to about power. People who have had trauma, whose sense of self is compromised by that trauma, have very supple minds. They're very open to manipulation. And if we can get the psychotherapists on board with spreading this political philosophy to those who are most vulnerable to being indoctrinated into it, including young children and persons with mental illnesses, then that's a very efficient way to spread that ideology. Isn't that horrible, Pam? For that woman who's experienced those things? Well spoken. Are you a teacher? No. Oh, I wish you were. Like, here, here. Oh, right. That's such a, you and, can I ask your name? So Michelle, you and, what? Michelle Love. Michelle, you and Pam are making such, you know what you strike me as doing? Like, I'm getting goosebumps because you're talking about like actual activism. I think the reading that I've done, I'm not an expert, but I believe that the kind of nuance that Pam and Michelle Love are bringing up that is the kind of nuance that we need, and yet using a metaphor like the bear in the dump, that doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. It's just so, or that doesn't fit on a yard sign. It's so much more cheap, dare I say, to just say Black Lives Matter. You know, that's like the easy way. What you are talking about is the hard way, but I think it's, I mean, everything that I can figure out about this issue suggests that there really is something to that.
My education wasn't 4 or 6 or whatever years in college. And I had someone say, well, we were taught, because of something that I said, well, we were taught to think critically in school. We were taught critical thinking in school. My thought on that is, God gave me critical thinking. I didn't need to be taught it. I have common sense. And I think a lot of times, and I'm not insulting anybody here that has higher education, but I don't think that I am any less because I haven't been through college. Right. Okay, I'm not saying that you say that. I'm just
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, you have no idea how dumb can I say that? Okay, you know.
common sense is ingrained
Yeah.
in us. What often happens, and not with everyone, but I think we exchange our common sense, our instincts, our gut feelings for books and book knowledge that was written by other people with opinions.
Yeah.
So I'd rather hang on to my God-given intellect, my God-given common sense, than exchange it for whatever was taught in school, critical thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have critical thinking, but it's God-given.
There's a kind of pernicious, this is what I meant to see about higher education, because I'm like, I would, I mean, I don't even know how to say this, other than to say this, that I'm around a lot of people a lot of the time who have PhDs from Harvard and from all kinds of other places, and what I can tell you is that there is a kind of yokalism there. And I don't mean, what I mean is that there is a pernicious ignorance that comes with only being exposed to someone who shares your opinion. And and then what we start to develop is this logical origami that allows us to only have what we already think be, from what we're hearing, and that explains a lot of what's going on in higher education. So,
Debate people, let's put it that way, and I do it nicely. I actually had one guy
he's forgetting that part in the husband clause. You signed something about that, sir? That's right. I signed one too.
But I've actually had a guy come back to me, and obviously he was on, wasn't even on just my own Facebook, because I don't even post to that anymore, but it was on a bigger forum. And he comes back, well, obviously he had gone into my profile and found that I was a cosmetologist. So what does he come back on and say? Oh, and you who only have.
He might as well have said, "My God, am I insecure?" Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a certain kind of, I would call it stupidity, but these clearly, yeah, asshole. I mean, like the polite term I've come up with is pernicious ignorance, but I mean, what I mean is people who really have lost that God-given common sense. And I do not find a correlation between the number of letters after someone's name and the wisdom that they have. I just don't. I mean, maybe when I was, 28, I thought that that meant something, but life has taught me indeed that that means very little. And I think working as a psychotherapist, watching people who have, they've had experiences that if I had had them, I'm not sure that I could have gone on.
My father was a dairy farmer, not a name, and again, it didn't include everybody.
Yeah.
It just was pertaining to those who gave up their God-given intuition, we call them educated idiots.
There's something to that.
To your point on slave owners and all the guys, the founding fathers were not saints. But if you look at the times and the accepted practices in those times, we've come past that. You can't have slaves anymore.
VT Livestream specializes in video streaming live events in real time with the utmost care and accuracy. We pride ourselves in our ability to connect friends and family virtually so they can share in life's most treasured moments. Weddings, birthdays, memorial services, sporting events, or conferences. Whatever the event, whatever moment you would like to share with your loved ones far away, we can help.